Sonny Landreth, mild-mannered gentleman badass.
Okay, you write the liner notes in the next album.
Well, not the title.
Well, we'll see.
Well, welcome, Sonny. Welcome back. It's great to hear you. You got a new CD, Bound by the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
You're revisiting some songs that you've probably been playing for decades. Not afraid to bring out some of the classics.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, Roy Rogers, a great slide player, singer, songwriter, producer. And I was going to sit in with his band, and we were going to write ideas for songs to play, and we thought, make it easy on me, play some of the old classics like Elmore James and so forth. And then I think we wound up the conversation. He says, well, but we won't do Dust My Broom, the classic Elmore James song, because everybody's done it. And I said, yeah, okay, fine. So hung up. You know, nobody needs to do that anymore. Hung up. And I started thinking, well, what would it take to do it again? And I sort of got the wheels turning, you know, and then it became a challenge, and then that was it. I was in. And but it was great because it got me to go back and rethink some of these old songs and wanted to bring something new to the table, but at the same time honor the original, and then also historically what's going on with those songs and those people back in those days. So it just add another layer to the whole thing.
Well, those were important songs. When you first discovered those songs, that was an amazing moment for you as a young musician.
Yeah, it was, and it was most inspirational and fired me up. And the great thing about doing this project was it kind of rekindled that in a way that I hadn't really.
Tell me about that night you went to see B.B. King when you were 16.
Oh, wow, yeah. That was
south of town somewhere, right?
Yeah, it was. It was in New Iberia, Louisiana, 20 miles south of where I lived, in a little club called Leo's Rendezvous. And I'd been reading the interviews with all the greats, like Eric Clapton, who was a huge influence, and they would talk, and I was like 16 years old. So they're talking about these the great bluesmen in America, and he mentioned B.B. King, and then I happened to notice, you know, he's playing, 20 minutes away from Lafayette. So I figured, well, I need to go check this out. So,
so it was reading an Eric Clapton interview from England that turned you on to B.B. King in Louisiana.
Right, and he was
wild.
Like 20 minutes away from Lafayette.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Hey, but whatever it takes, you got there, and what happened?
Well, it was incredible. I mean, I'd never seen him live. Of course, I've been listening to some of the records and all, but then that was huge. And what was amazing was it was a small club, like I mentioned, and there weren't that many people there. But it didn't matter. He was playing like he was playing for thousands.
Yeah.
And he had a smaller group, but he did have a horn. He had a saxophone player, and then he took a break and he just walked right straight over to the bar. I mean, it was small, so right over to the bar, 20 feet away, and then I somehow mustered up the courage to go up and talk to him.
Oh wow! And he talked to you?
He was most gracious, and
wow.
That sort of began a great love affair for me for him and his music. And for many years, it seemed like my life was in orbit around him with so many different experiences. It's interesting how that works, and you connect with someone, and then it becomes more and more over the years. It means a lot more, and it enriches everything. Even though I'd go on to play other kinds of music, it really doesn't matter.
Well, he also set such a standard, both in terms as a performer, as a singer, as a player, as an entertainer, as a human being who was accessible, like you say. He was a guy who didn't have an attitude. He was.
No, he didn't, and everybody was his best friend. It's like he never met a stranger, and he had a way of pulling people in that way, and you don't forget that.
And now you get to play. I mean, you get to play. You're asked to play by Eric Clapton at the Crossroads Festival every year. And I suspect for a number of years you crossed paths with BB at those things, and maybe did you get to connect a little bit more?
Yeah, we did. And even before that, Dave and I were out with John Hyatt and the Goners, and we did BB's Blues Circus. And he did that every year for months. I mean, BB stayed on the road, man. I mean, and incredibly, even at his age at that point in time, his bus would pull up, and he'd wake up wake up for the gig, and he was like the last one to play. Tommy Castro played really great. We played, and then Buddy Guy, then BB.
Yeah.
And we did that for like 3.5, almost 4 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. So whenever he was not sleeping, you get to hang out with him.
Yeah, that was it. He'd come by the bus and check us out.
That's good.
Welcome, guys. Come on, boy.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I love the idea of you being such a sponge and living in Lafayette, Louisiana. Just did your dad get a gig there, or why did your family move from Mississippi to Lafayette in the first place?
Yeah, he did. My whole family is from Mississippi and North Mississippi, and he got a job with State Farm Insurance, and brought us to Lafayette, and I thought it was really cool because at that point in time there was a real popular TV show about Jim Bowie, who was in Louisiana, and I thought, wow, that's cool. Everybody's got knives, I thought it was really cool, and I was 7 years old, and somebody told me, whatever you do, don't call them Cajuns. They'll pull their knife out. I said, oh wow, I thought it was really cool. Anyway, that never happened.
And don't say insurance. They'll be on to you.
Never really thought of it that way.
But I mean, what I was going to say is just such an amazing musical community. You just suddenly are in the midst of this stew. That's this, as you say, there's Cajun music, there's Zydeco music, there's blues, there's swamp pop, there's all this stuff floating around, drifting up from New Orleans.
Right.
So you were just in the thick of it all.
Yeah, and the great thing when you're a kid like that, you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
It's all you're just taking it in, and it was amazing. I mean, to have that to draw from, and because music is such a huge part of the culture, and culture is a big deal there in South Louisiana, and
it wasn't particularly a black-white thing. You were a 16-year-old kid that went to this bar that was probably predominantly a black club back when you went to see B.B. King, and that was okay.
It was great.
Yeah. And in fact, you were the first. You were the only white guy in Clifton Cheniere's band.
Yeah, right? When I met him, I was a kid. That happened a little later in the year. He saw me and a buddy of mine standing out by the front door, and he said, "Come on in, soul, come on in." And I said, "Oh, this is great." He sat us down, and that was the first time I got welcomed into the Creole community, and just
Zydeco world.
Just never got over that. It was really amazing. And then, because I heard about this guy who played blues on the accordion, and I thought, well, I got to check this out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was thinking Lawrence Welk and all, but it was a very different kind of thing.
And then years later, you're in his band.
That's right.
Yeah. The Red Hot Louisiana Band.
Red Hot Louisiana Band. Yeah. To me, the height of my musical career was in 1979. So.
Well, I'm glad we're helping you just kind of string it on here for a little.
And I appreciate it.
In case you just tuned in, you're listening to eTown. I'm here with Sonny Landreth. We've got a lot more music to get to. I want to mention briefly, though, you provided some musical background and the soundtrack for a film done by a guy we know named John Bowermaster that was about the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and the film is called After the Spill. And I'm wondering how that came about and what that experience was like for you.
Well, he approached me. He was actually familiar with my work and our work with the band, and which is really cool. So he knew from the songs and listening to different kinds of textures and things from the album and the production that it would fit for his film. And I was really honored to be asked, and I love doing that kind of work. I wanted to do more of it.
Yeah.
I've always thought, because slide guitar has such a potential to create different kinds of sounds and create color and textures, and all, it just works perfectly for that. And in fact, that's kind of gets back to the old Delta bluesmen, because they would do that in the story songs. Playing slide would emulate different kinds of sounds or whatever to reinforce the imagery of the song. So for the documentary or film, it's the same kind of thing.
It's a natural fit. Yeah. And that was a story, obviously, that was near and dear to everybody in Louisiana.
Right.
And so suddenly you're watching this film, and I understand you also went on the road a little bit when this film was screened around Louisiana and played some music too, right?
Yeah, we did. I would go out and play for like 15, 20 minutes, and then they would show the film. And the film's incredible. It's really heavy, but it's the kind of message that people need to hear. And because if you watch the commercials from BP, I mean, they spent millions of dollars to make it all look like everything's just fine, And in fact, it's not. And he goes back to these people on the Gulf Coast that were so affected by it and interviews them, and also the people who are involved with the cause to make a change.
Yeah.
And it's really a beautiful thing. And it's happening now.
Yeah. And did you ever meet any resistance when you're traveling around the state, talking about this being a problem, this oil business?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, at least not where we were,
Yeah.
you know. But I think it resonated with everyone because of the history of it and knowing the impact it has on the environment and everyone else's lives, and how that needs to change so that you know, this kind of thing wouldn't happen again. And that's the fearful thing about it. It's so entrenched with the companies.
And your hometown. I mean, Lafayette's
Exactly.
an oil town.
People's livelihood, you
Yeah.
know, and there's two sides to the story. It's not to slight one or the other, but it's just to have clarity about what's really going on, so
Yeah.
you can do something different.
Well, there may be a window right around now for this transition to start looking a little more attractive. So we'll see what happens. But hopefully that made a difference.
Hope so.
And you didn't get too much. You didn't get any trouble from your fans.
No, I didn't get beat up. Nobody
Nobody
walked
pulled
out. That's what I always go by as a professional musician.
Yeah.
If somebody gets up to go to the bathroom, you go, "Oh Lord, I've lost him."
No Jim Bowie knives coming out.
No,
of it.
nice. Yeah.
Well, it's a lovely crossroads of that kind of intersection between art and culture, bringing music, bringing people together, and then film, of course, being a great tool for storytelling, and then having an opportunity to tell that story right where it really took place in Louisiana. That does, in fact, need to have that cultural and that sort of spiritual shift happen in order for this transition. As I said, Lafayette's kind of right in the middle of petrochemical zone.
The oil center.
Yeah.
Right there, all the offices.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a big job, but it's cool that you did that you took a part and got involved with that project.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great honor.
Well, it's what happens when you're refined, gentleman,
Yeah.
badass.
So that comes with a resume,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Well, we've got a lot of music coming up, and I'm really glad you're back with us, Sonny. Great to
Nick.
see you. It's great that you got your band with you too. You just
They're
it's a
awesome.
power trio that as good as any. So
I appreciate it.
yeah.
Glad to be
Well, let's
here.
get back to music. Welcome back, along with his band, Sonny Landreth.
Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.